Thanks for clicking on this video. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon and turn on all notifications to keep up to date with the latest information and discussions. Dragon, dragon, rock the dragon, you get the idea. Now let's watch the video. Hey guys, MasakoX here. One of the most common themes of early day Dragon Ball was of course the almighty dragon Shenron. Then in Dragon Ball Z that kind of fell to the wayside, and the titular based character that particularly carried the show early on was kind of relegated to a simple tool of convenience. Not exactly the most deserving of fate, I must admit, really. I felt that this was the time that Haverock and I discussed the significance of dragons in Dragon Ball. I mean, why not? We haven't really talked too much about dragons in a while, or barely at all anyway. The topic is in the name of the show, it is in the logo, and they appear in all the series. Also, if you think about it, Dragon Ball GT did a seemingly better job of including different types of dragons in the overall plot. Wow. Now, only if they implemented it better, it might have been really good. Shame. This doesn't mean that Dragon Ball Super failed to mention dragons at all or bring anything new to the table. Far from it. In fact, they did a pretty good job with it. We actually touched a bit upon them in our Zaruma video from a long time ago, at the beginning of last year, but we've never decided to dwell into the more cultural background. Regarding dragons and expand the meaning of various types of dragons in and even outside of Dragon Ball. It was such a long time ago, back to the days when we thought about Zaruma and Super Shenron, and they'd actually be connected to Ultra Instinct somehow and in some way. Oh, how Haverock and I were so naive back then. So, let's get started with the most obvious dragon. You know, our old buddy Shenron, who is the most frequently recurring dragon in the series. He is the archetypal dragon synonymous with the entire Dragon Ball franchise, even gracing both the Japanese logos for Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And I think I know what you guys are about to say. Masako, you silly goose, Shenron is just based on a Chinese dragon. Done. I was honestly expecting a but Masako there, but there we are. Yeah, you're not wrong. Shenron is basically an interpretation of a Chinese dragon within the show. Stands to reason since there was a lot of Eastern culture chucked into the original series especially. But there is more to this story than you might think. Shenron is directly based on the Chinese dragon Shenlong. These two names are interchangeable, so if you refer to the DBZ dragon as Shenlong, you're pretty much correct. It doesn't really matter. So, yeah, okay. That's all very well and good, but what was the original Shenlong all about then? Well, to borrow from the Mythstorians channel that I do a lot of narration for, in Chinese mythology, he was a spiritual dragon, the master of storms and the bringer of rain. And while we do not associate our Shenron with rainy weather in particular, there is one thing about the original Shenlong that carries over to our version, and it's always been staring us in the face. Or more accurately, it's been staring down on us. The sky always gets dark and cloudy whenever he gets summoned, and he is often accompanied by lightning. It's not just for effect or to make him look cool. I mean, he does look cool, but it's harking back to his mythical origins. His scales were azure, and it was said that if you angered him and his brethren, they could curse you and chuck all sorts of bad weather onto you and your loved ones that could get so bad it could end up resulting in major flash floods. So although seemingly he was lauded and celebrated amongst Chinese agricultural businesses in general and farmers alike, as obviously the rain is pretty important for growing crops and feeding China, Shenlong has become a pretty major motif also adorning the robes and regalia of Chinese emperors and rich people. Shenlong's appearance embodied early Chinese emperors, possibly due to the fact that it had 5 claws, like 5 fingers representing emperors, and therefore they are the ultimate beings, and thusly became a trait that was connected to imperial dragons, that term. But it can't be as vain or as obvious as that, Masako, surely. And no, it wasn't. So why was the number of claws significant? The early Chinese dragons can be depicted with 2 to 5 claws. Different countries that adopted the Chinese dragon have different preferences. In Mongolia and Korea, the 4-clawed dragons are used, while for Japanese dragons, 3-clawed dragons are common. By the Yuan dynasty, the 5-clawed dragons became reserved for use by the emperor, while the princes used 4-clawed dragons. Put simply, 5-clawed dragons were like a calling card for China and their emperors. These dragons stood up for the people of China and their rulers and would protect them and provide for them. It was a hugely important and symbolic stance that stood them in good stead and differentiated themselves from their neighbouring countries to show, yeah, we're better than you. But wait, it's not as simple as that when you get down to the nitty-gritty. It can't be. It continues, the quote. The Hongwu Emperor of the Ming dynasty emulated the Yuan dynasty rules on the use of the dragon motif and decreed that the dragon would be his emblem and that it would have 5 claws. The 4-clawed dragon would become typically for imperial nobility and certain high-ranking officials. The 3-clawed dragon was used by lower ranks and the general public, widely seen on various Chinese goods in the Ming dynasty. The dragon, however, was only for select royalty, closely associated with the imperial family, usually in various symbolic colours, while it was a capital offence for anyone other than the emperor himself to ever use the completely gold-coloured 5-clawed long dragon motif. Improper use of claw number or colours were considered treason, punishable by execution of the offender's entire clan. So it was also a ranking system then. As you can see, our boy Shenron has only 4 claws, which makes him more noble than imperial. So he's still pretty high in the overall divine ranking, but as you can tell, the Earth Dragon is not necessarily the strongest dragon. It means that you could go higher. But does Shenron share any traits with, you know, European dragons? Sort of. By now, you guys probably know that the serpentine Chinese dragons are often connected with wisdom and grace. They are something to be admired and praised. But what about European dragons? We don't often talk about those. Well, if you hark back to your youth and remember your history classes, our relationships with European dragons have been less than great. For example, here's an illustration of a winged dragon by Friedrich Justin Bertuch, done around 1806. And here's one dating back to around 1260 AD, which is, as of the time of this recording, the oldest recognisable image of a fully modern Western dragon that we know of. Right off the bat, these creatures are something to strike fear within the hearts of men, and for knights of the realm to conquer. Basically, just Charizard. No offence to anybody living in Wales, by the way. Cardiff's lovely. As we've touched on before, they started off as being traditionally malicious, fire-breathing creatures with bat-like wings and long tails, muscular tails at that. These things were built like boulders, quite frankly, more like dinosaurs. In legends, they often protected a cavern or a castle that was filled with treasures. Smaug anyone? Despite this preconception, Beowulf, the famous Anglo-Saxon poem from circa 700 to 1000 AD, a favourite of mine from grade school by the way, depicted a more snake-like depiction of a dragon, but it still propagated some very draconic traits like living underground, hoarding treasures, and of course, breathing fire. It's worth noting that while dragons are usually depicted as vile creatures, Asturian and Welsh folklore often gave them a more positive role, hence why the Welsh flag is adorned with the red dragon of Cadwallader. These entities were seen as wise creatures that offer a challenge or advice, which are much more in sync with Eastern mythos. Here's a picture of the mythological Fafnir guarding the Gold Hoard. The illustration done by Arthur Rackham to Richard Wagner's Siegfried, so you know. So at first glance, there's nothing that's connecting most European dragons to Shenron. But to us, a dragon resting on a treasure hoard feels pretty close to Shenron ascending from the Dragonballs. But of course, Toei and Toriyama wouldn't be themselves if they didn't reverse the European dragon trope and make something out of it and make something completely harmless from it. Yep, subversion tactics are at it again. That's right. You guys remember Icarus, right? You know, the lovely, adorable and edible dragon. He first appears in the Tree of Might movie, and while there isn't much to say about him in particular, I mean, we can only assume that Toriyama designed him simply, seeing how similar he is drawn to a dragon that he made for other series like Dr. Slump or Kosuke and Rikimaru. We should note that at some point in the movie, he attacks Shenron whilst in a state of panic, which is an interesting twist on a cultural clash between Eastern and Western dragons. Now, he is by no means a major character, but it is interesting that a European dragon made it to Dragon Ball in some way. albeit just for the movies, and then never seen again after the Cooler movie. Did Goku actually eat him? We will never know. They must never know. So I want to go back to fingers, as I mentioned with our boy Shenron. Yeah, he only had 4. But you know who has 5? Our good old buddy Porunga. Funnily enough though, only in the anime. Now I might assume that the anime staff wanted to either further humanize the dragon to make him stand out more from Shenron so he's not just a simple clone. They might have wanted to show that he had higher status and a better ability at granting certain wishes, as Porunga is much bigger, beefier, and more imposing than our snake-like Shenron. Now, what is Porunga based on? It looks like a legless kaiju at best, but no. Has anyone heard about the creatures that are known as Naga? Well, I'm pretty sure that anyone who's ever played Warcraft, Heroes of Might and Magic, or D&D have heard about these creatures in some shape or form, or even fought against one in battle. But believe it or not, they are not a fantasy-exclusive trope. Naga, literally serpent in Sanskrit, were semi-divine beings appearing in Hinduistic, Buddhist, and Jainistic beliefs. They, like Cell, were very handsome creatures with imposing features, able to cycle between fully serpentine beings or human-like forms, often appearing as half human and half cobra. They live in an underground kingdom called Nagaloka, or Patalaloka, which is filled with resplendent palaces, beautifully ornamented with precious gems. The creator deity, Brahma, relegated the Nagas to the nether regions when they became too populous on Earth and commanded them to bite only the truly evil or those destined to die prematurely. They are also associated with waters, rivers, lakes, seas, and wells, and are guardians of treasure. In fact, some of the noble families in India even claimed that they were connected to these creatures, that they themselves were wholly humanoid descendants of once great beasts, that they could change into these beings, they just choose not to. In traditional Buddhist art, they are depicted completely in their serpentine form and represented as door guardians. Their role as wise guardians, as well as another connection to treasures, makes their connection to Porunga pretty apparent, and while it was never confirmed by Toriyama or anything like that, we feel that they are a strong candidate to be what inspired Toriyama originally. He probably just can't remember. Now you may notice that we don't mention Super Shenron that much, mostly because we already made a whole video that was dedicated to him. But to not leave him out of this video because he is a dragon, here's just a little note. If he's called Super Shenron, then it means that regular Shenrons had to exist before him. It's like with Superman. To call yourself Superman, you need to have other humans or humanoid life forms to compete against, to make you super. Are there more Shenrons? Did they used to originally live outside of Dragon Balls? Is this another time Toriyama just didn't think about it and left something pretty vague in our midst for us to theorize for years and years? The truth is, we don't know. But we are glad that we have had this opportunity to teach you a bit about dragons. So what do you guys think? Might there be stories involving Shenron or other dragons outside of Dragon Balls? Might we see the return of shadow dragons in some way? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!